You ever felt like your presence in someone's life was more than just coincidence? Like you were sent for a bigger purpose to help them, guide them, or maybe even warn them? Well, what if I told you that you might be God's final warning to the narcissist in your life? Yes, you heard that right. You see, when God sends his chosen ones, they bring light, truth, and love. And that light often exposes the darkness in others. If you've ever been in a relationship, whether it's a partner, friend, or even family member, where someone constantly tried to control, manipulate, and hurt you, there's a good chance your presence wasn't just random. You were placed there as a test, as a mirror, and maybe even as their last chance to change. But here's the powerful part. Your role isn't small. It's divine. And today we're going to uncover the signs that you are God's final warning to the narcissist. So stay with me till the end, because these signs could completely change how you see yourself and your journey. Before we dive in, I want you to show some love. Hit that like button and join our beautiful community where we talk about deep spiritual truths and life-changing wisdom. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Ready? Let's get into it. And remember, if this message resonates with you, it's because you were meant to hear it. Let's go. Some people are good at hiding who they really are. On the outside, they seem confident, kind, and even charming, but deep inside, they carry darkness, pride, selfishness, and a need for control. When you step into their life, something strange happens. Suddenly their mask starts to crack. You might notice that they act differently around you. At first, they might admire you, even try to get close to you. But over time, their attitude shifts. They become irritated by your presence, uncomfortable with your words, and defensive over things that never used to bother them. It's because your energy, the light inside you, shines too brightly. And when light enters a dark place, everything hidden becomes visible. They can no longer pretend to be someone they're not. You see through them. You notice their manipulation, their lies, their selfish ways. You don't even have to say anything. Your existence alone reminds them of what they don't want to face. This is why they might try to bring you down. They will criticize you, question your worth, or even twist situations to make you feel like the problem. Here's the truth. It's not about you, it's about them. Your spirit carries truth, love, and authenticity. And for someone who has spent their life building a false image, that truth feels like a threat. They don't want to change, so instead, they try to make you doubt yourself. But don't let them. You were sent for a reason. Maybe God placed you in their life to wake them up, to give them a chance to change. Whether they take that chance or not is up to them. But one thing is certain, after meeting you, they can never be the same. Because once truth is revealed, it can't be ignored. Sometimes the people we meet in life aren't just there by chance. They're part of a bigger plan. And if you've ever found yourself in the life of a narcissist, it's not an accident. You were sent there for a purpose. You see, God doesn't randomly place his chosen ones. He puts them where they're needed, where their light, wisdom, and strength can make an impact. When you entered the narcissist's life, you brought something they weren't used to: truth, real, honest love, patience, compassion, and most of all, accountability. But here's the thing, not everyone is ready for that. Narcissists often live in a world of denial. They wear masks to hide their pain and cover their flaws. They surround themselves with people who praise them, not people who challenge them. And then you came along. You became their mirror. When they looked at you, they saw the reflection of their own behavior. Your kindness made their cruelty obvious. Your honesty highlighted their lies. Your strength exposed their need for control. And because of that, they felt threatened, but you weren't just a mirror. You were also a lesson. Through you, they had a chance to learn what real love looks like. They had an opportunity to grow, to face their flaws, and to become better. You showed them patience when they didn't deserve it. You forgave them when they never apologized. You stayed when most people would have walked away. And yet, some lessons go unlearned. That's when you become the final warning. God sent you not only as a blessing, but as a wake-up call. If they reject you, your love, your truth, your guidance, they're not just rejecting you. They're rejecting the chance God gave them to change. Remember this, you didn't meet them by accident, you were sent with purpose. Whether they accept or ignore that purpose, your role in their life was divine, and once your assignment is complete, their choice determines what happens next. When a narcissist feels threatened by your light, their first instinct is to break you. They attack your confidence, twist your words, and make you question your worth. They push your buttons, hoping you'll react, hoping you'll crumble under the weight of their manipulation, but you don't. You stand firm. No matter how much they criticize you or try to tear you down, there's something inside you they can't touch, your divine strength. It's not just willpower, it's the quiet, unshakable belief that you are protected and guided by something greater. And that terrifies them. You see, narcissists thrive on control. They want to dominate your emotions, shape your reality, and make you depend on their approval. But when they realize their tactics don't work on you, when they see you rising above the chaos they create, it reflects their own weakness. Here's the powerful truth. Every time you refuse to engage in their drama, every time you hold your peace when they try to provoke you, you show them something they can't understand, the power of someone protected by God. They will try harder, they'll push more, they'll get louder, but no matter how strong the storm, you remain rooted. And the more you stand firm, the more their frustration grows. They realize they cannot destroy what God has built, and that scares them. So when they try to break you, remember this, your resilience is a message. It's a reminder that God's chosen ones cannot be defeated. You were placed in their life not to be broken, but to show them what true strength and grace look like. And whether they learn from it or not, your presence leaves a mark they can never erase. When you speak, your words carry weight. They come from a place of love, wisdom, and conviction. And that's exactly why the narcissist can't stand them. They don't just hear your words, they feel them. And that feeling? It's uncomfortable. You see, narcissists spend their lives running from the truth. They build walls of lies and denial to protect their fragile egos. They surround themselves with people who tell them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. But then you came along and you disrupted that comfort. When you call out their manipulation, their selfishness, or their lack of accountability, it shakes them. Not because you're being harsh, but because your words carry divine authority. You're not speaking from anger or pride, you're speaking from truth and love. And deep down, they know it. That's why they react the way they do. They dismiss you, twist your words, or accuse you of being too sensitive or too dramatic. But their defensiveness isn't about you, it's about their fear. Your truth exposes their lies, and that's a reality they're not ready to face. But here's what you must remember. Even when they reject your message, the seed has been planted. They may deny it, but your words linger. In quiet moments, when no one's watching, they'll hear your voice in their mind. They'll wrestle with the truth you spoke, because it's a truth they can't escape. God sent you into their life for this very reason. You are their wake-up call. Whether they choose to listen or ignore it is their decision. But your role was never to convince them. It was simply to deliver the message with love and conviction. And you did. When a narcissist hurts you, they think they're getting away with it. They lie, manipulate, and mistreat you without a second thought, believing their actions have no real consequences. But what they don't realize is that when they go against someone protected by God, there's a price to pay. And that price often comes in the form of their life slowly falling apart. At first, it may seem like nothing's happening. They may even seem happier after pushing you away, but flaunting new relationships, new successes, or a carefree attitude. But don't be fooled, that's just a mask. What they don't show is the storm that's beginning to brew behind the scenes, and that storm only gets stronger the longer they continue down this path of destruction. You see, your presence in their life was a form of grace. God placed you there not just to challenge them, but to help them grow, to guide them toward healing and accountability. But when they chose to reject that gift, they also rejected the protection and blessings that came with it. You were the calm before the storm, the last chance to turn things around. And when they hurt you, someone sent to help them, they set a chain of consequences in motion. Suddenly things start falling apart. Their relationships become strained, full of distrust and conflict. The charm they once used to manipulate others stops working. People begin to see through their facade, and the support they relied on starts to disappear. Financial problems arise, opportunities slip away, and they find themselves facing unexpected losses. The peace they once felt turns into chaos, but the most painful consequence is the emptiness they're left with. When they pushed you away, they didn't just lose a person, they lost the light, love and patience you brought into their life. They lost the one person willing to stand by them despite their flaws. And without that presence, the darkness they've been running from closes in faster than ever. What's happening to them isn't random. It's a reflection of their own actions. When you mistreat someone sent by God, you step out of alignment with grace and step into the consequences of your own behavior. This isn't about revenge, it's about spiritual balance. What they gave out, they receive back. And because they sowed pain and destruction, that's exactly what returns to them. But here's the thing, these consequences aren't meant just to punish. They're meant to wake them up. It's a chance for them to reflect, to see the damage they've caused, and maybe, just maybe, choose a different path. Whether they take that chance or not is up to them. As for you, don't feel guilty for their downfall. You didn't cause it. Their actions did. You were their grace period, their chance to change. And when they chose to hurt you, they chose the consequences that followed. When you finally walk away from the narcissist, they might not react the way you expect. At first, they may seem unbothered, even relieved. They might flaunt their freedom, dive into new relationships, or act like losing you meant nothing, but don't let that fool you. The real impact of your absence takes time, and when it hits hard. See, you weren't just another person in their life. You were their grace, a light sent by God to guide them toward healing and growth. Through your love, patience, and wisdom, you offered them something rare, the chance to change, to become better, and to experience real, unconditional love. But when they chose to mistreat you, to lie, manipulate, and take you for granted, they rejected that grace. And when you finally leave, that's when the weight of their loss becomes clear. At first, they may distract themselves with people, work, or material things, but nothing fills the void you left, because it wasn't just your presence they lost, it was the peace, support, and love you brought into their life. And as that emptiness grows, they start to realize that your absence feels different. It's not just loneliness, it's the feeling of God's judgment. This judgment isn't about punishment, it's about revelation. God is showing them exactly what they threw away. The people they replace you with don't offer the same patience. The new relationships lack depth. The support they once had in you disappears, and they're left with the consequences of their own choices. Everything you warned them about starts happening. The peace you brought leaves with you, and in its place comes chaos and regret. But the hardest part for them? The reflection. Without you there to blame or project their issues onto, they're forced to face themselves. And for someone who's spent their life running from the truth, that's a terrifying thing. They begin to realize that you weren't the problem. You were the blessing. And your absence becomes a painful reminder of the love, growth, and grace they rejected. By the time they understand this, it's often too late. They may try to reach out, hoping to reclaim what they lost, but deep down, they know your departure was God's final warning. And the emptiness they feel, that's the space where your love used to be, a space only real change and humility can ever hope to fill. Your presence in the narcissist's life isn't just coincidence, it's a mirror. And what that mirror reflects is something they've spent their entire life trying to avoid: the truth. You see, narcissists build their entire identity on a false self, a carefully crafted image of confidence, superiority, and control. But that image is just a mask, and underneath it lies fear, shame, and deep insecurity. When you come into their life, you challenge that mask without even trying. Your authenticity, kindness, and strength stand in direct contrast to their manipulation and emptiness. Your ability to love selflessly, speak truthfully, and stand firm in your values highlights everything they lack. And this triggers their deepest insecurities. And they start to see the cracks in their own facade, but instead of acknowledging them, they lash out. They call you too sensitive when you express your feelings, because your emotional depth reminds them of their own emotional emptiness. They accuse you of being demanding when you ask for honesty, because your need for truth exposes their constant lies. Your strength threatens their control, and your confidence exposes their hidden self-doubt. This is why they react with anger and defensiveness. It's not really about you. It's about the parts of themselves they desperately try to keep buried. When you reflect their flaws and fears back at them, it creates an unbearable tension. Instead of facing their own issues, they project them onto you. They twist situations, blame you for their problems, and try to make you question your reality. All in an effort to avoid the truth you reflect, but deep down they know you see them, the real them, and that terrifies them. Your presence makes it impossible for them to keep up the illusion, and the more you stand in your truth, the more their insecurities surface. You were sent to their life not just as a partner or friend, but as a reflection and a lesson. Whether they learn from it or run from it is their choice, but the truth you reveal can't be unseen. This is why they fight so hard to break you down, because if they can silence you, they can silence the truth. But your strength, resilience, and authenticity are reminders that the truth doesn't bend to their will. And no matter how much they resist, the mirror you hold up remains clear, reflecting exactly what they need to face if they ever hope to change. When you finally walk away from the narcissist, something strange happens. At first, they may act like they don't care, like losing you meant nothing, but soon you'll notice them trying to become the very person they once tried to break down. They start mimicking your kindness, your wisdom, your strength. But no matter how hard they try, it always feels off. It's because they're imitating something they never truly understood. Narcissists are experts at wearing masks. They watch and study the people around them, picking up on qualities that earn love, respect, and admiration. And you? You had a spirit they admired, even if they'd never admit it. Your patience, your compassion, your ability to stay strong in the face of their attacks. These were things they secretly wished they had. But instead of learning from you in a genuine way, They tried to tear you down because your light made their darkness too obvious. But here's the thing. Authenticity can't be copied. When they try to show kindness, it feels forced. When they try to sound wise, their words lack depth. And when they try to display strength, it comes off as arrogance or defensiveness. That's because everything they do is about appearances, not real growth. They want the admiration that comes with being like you, but they're not willing to do the inner work that shaped you. What's even more frustrating for them is that they know they can't replace your spirit. The people around them can sense the difference. The warmth and peace you brought into their life can't be faked. They may try to act like they've changed, but deep down, they're still wrestling with the same insecurities and emptiness, and no amount of imitation can fill the void you left behind. In their attempt to become you, they end up highlighting just how far they are from the person they pretended to be. And with every hollow gesture and empty word, they're reminded that the grace, love, and strength you carried weren't just acts. They were reflections of your true spirit. And that's something no one can copy. Loving a narcissist isn't easy, and yet you did. You showed them grace when they didn't deserve it. You forgave them when they hurt you. You stood by them when they pushed you away. But what sets you apart, and what makes you God's final warning, is that your love wasn't blind. You offered grace, but you also set boundaries. This balance of love and firmness is something the narcissist isn't used to. Most people either enable their toxic behavior out of fear or exhaustion, or they walk away without a second thought. But you stayed long enough to show them what real love looks like. And real love isn't about tolerating disrespect. It's about accountability. It's about saying, I love you, but I won't let you mistreat me. At first, they didn't take your boundaries seriously. They saw your forgiveness as weakness. They thought your grace meant they could keep crossing lines without consequence. But when you started standing firm, when you stopped allowing manipulation, lies, and disrespect, it shocked them. They realized your love wasn't something they could control. It was something they had to rise to deserve. This is where God's warning comes in. Through you, the narcissist got a glimpse of what real accountability looks like. You showed them that love and boundaries go hand in hand, that grace doesn't mean a free pass for bad behavior. And when they refused to change, they started feeling the weight of those boundaries. They felt the distance when you pulled back. They felt the loss when you stopped tolerating their games. But the most powerful lesson you taught them was this: grace has limits. Forgiveness is a gift, but trust must be earned. And when they kept taking your kindness for granted, they lost the one person who truly cared enough to hold them accountable. By walking away, when you refuse to change, that message, it's God's final warning. And whether they choose to listen or not, the lesson remains. When you finally walk away from the narcissist, they might act like they don't care. They may pretend they've moved on, post pictures with new people, or spread lies about you. But behind that mask, something very different is happening. They're obsessing over you. They stalk your social media, ask people about you, and quietly watch your every move. They want to know if you're happy without them, if you found someone new, if your life has fallen apart without their presence. But it goes deeper than curiosity or ego. It's spiritual. Their spirit knows they lost something rare and divine. You see, your role in their life wasn't just as a partner, friend, or supporter. You were God's grace, a light meant to guide them toward healing and growth. Your love was patient, your forgiveness was deep, and your strength was unlike anything they'd ever known. And now that you're gone, they feel the emptiness. That emptiness isn't just loneliness. It's the absence of God's presence that you carried. That's why they can't move on. Their spirit is restless because it recognizes the truth. You were their last chance for real transformation. They didn't just lose you, they lost the opportunity to face their own darkness and become better. And now, as their life starts falling apart, they start to see the connection. But instead of reflecting and changing, many narcissists stay stuck in obsession. They replay conversations, wonder why they couldn't break you, and try to imitate the qualities they admired in you. Yet no matter how hard they try, they can't fill the void you left, because that void wasn't shaped by your presence alone. It was shaped by the divine spirit you brought into their life. This obsession isn't about love, it's about regret. It's the weight of knowing they mistreated someone sent to help them heal. And no matter how much they try to replace you, deep down, they know the truth. What they lost was irreplaceable. When you finally walk away from the narcissist, something incredible happens. You start to shine. The weight of their manipulation, criticism, and negativity lifts. And suddenly, you feel lighter. Your peace deepens, your joy returns, and opportunities start flowing your way. This transformation isn't just a coincidence, it's God's favor showing up in your life, a reward for choosing yourself and walking away from what was breaking you. The narcissist notices this glow and it drives them crazy. They expected you to fall apart without them. They wanted your life to crumble so they could feel powerful, thinking you couldn't survive without their presence. But instead, you thrive. You look happier, healthier, and more at peace than ever before. Your glow becomes a painful reminder of what they rejected. What they don't understand is that this glow isn't just about moving on, it's spiritual. When you stayed in their life, you poured love, patience, and grace into someone who never appreciated it. That constant drain kept you from fully stepping into your purpose. But the moment you chose to protect your heart and set boundaries, you made room for God's blessings to flow freely. Your healing became visible, and that inner peace radiates in ways they can't ignore. The narcissist starts watching from the shadows. They check your social media, ask mutual friends about you, and look for signs that you miss them. But instead they see you flourishing. They see the favor on your life, new successes, deeper connections, and a confidence they never managed to break. And while they may pretend not to care, they feel the loss deeply. But here's the truth. Your glow is God's justice. It's a reflection of the love and strength they tried to destroy and tax, and a clear message that what they rejected was something precious and divine. And now they're left watching from a distance, realizing that your light was never theirs to dim. After you walk away from the narcissist, their life begins to spiral. And instead of taking responsibility, they blame you. Every failure, every setback, every bit of chaos that unfolds becomes your fault in their eyes. They tell others you were the problem. They paint you as the villain, saying you were too demanding, too sensitive, too hard to please. But the truth? The storm they're facing is the consequence of their own actions. The narcissist thrives on control, and when you leave, that control slips away. Without you there to absorb their anger, fix their mistakes, and validate their fragile ego, their life starts falling apart. Their relationships become strained, their career suffers, and their peace, if they ever had any, disappears completely. But instead of looking inward and admitting their own flaws, they do what they've always done. They project. But here's the painful part. Deep down, they know truth. They know you were the one person who truly cared. You saw their brokenness and tried to help them heal. You offered love, patience, and forgiveness when they didn't deserve it. And while they may never admit it, they recognize that losing you was the beginning of their downfall. That's why they keep your name in their mouth. Blaming you is easier than facing the reality of their own behavior. It distracts them from the emptiness they feel and the consequences they can't escape. But no matter how much they point fingers, their spirit knows the truth. You were their grace, and they pushed you away. And now, they're left with the chaos they created. When you entered the narcissist's life, you didn't just bring love, you brought wisdom, growth, and light. You challenged them to be better, not by demanding it, but by living it. Through your kindness, patience, and strength, you showed them what real love and accountability look like. You became an example of grace and growth, and whether they admit it or not, they noticed. They saw the wisdom in your words. Every time you spoke truth, it hit something deep inside them. You encouraged them to face their fears, heal their wounds, and break toxic patterns. You stood firm when they tried to manipulate you, showing them that boundaries and love can exist together. And even when they mocked your strength, they secretly admired it. But instead of embracing that growth, they resisted. Pride became their greatest enemy. Admitting you were right would mean acknowledging their flaws. And narcissists rarely face their own reflection without anger or denial. They saw the path to healing, but it required humility they weren't ready to offer. So instead of learning from your wisdom, they pushed back harder. This resistance often showed up as criticism and deflection. When you spoke about accountability, they called you controlling. When you set boundaries, they accused you of being cold. Every effort you made to inspire positive change became twisted into an attack. But their anger wasn't really about you. It was about the truth you reflected. You showed them who they could become, but the fear of facing their brokenness kept them stuck. The hardest part? You kept believing in their potential. You saw past their defenses and into the person they could be. Someone healed, whole, and capable of love. And despite their resistance, there were moments when that truth broke through. Moments when their walls cracked and their vulnerability showed. But those moments were fleeting because change requires surrender, and surrender felt like defeat to them. When you finally walked away, the lesson didn't leave with you. The seeds you planted remained. They may not show it, but your example lingers. Every time they face the consequences of their actions, they remember your words. Every time they see someone who carries the same grace you did, they feel the loss. But whether they choose to grow from it is up to them. And many will keep resisting because pride fights harder than love sometimes. But here's what you need to know: your role was never wasted. Even if they never change, you were God's instrument of truth and grace in their life. You showed them what accountability, love, and growth look like. And whether they embrace it or reject it, the light you brought made an impact. Being around a narcissist isn't just emotionally exhausting, it's spiritually draining. You may have noticed that after every interaction you feel depleted, like your energy has been completely sucked away. It's not just the arguments, the manipulation, or the constant need to defend yourself. It's something deeper, a spiritual battle you didn't even realize you were fighting. The narcissist thrives on control and chaos. They stir up confusion, twist your words, and make you question your own reality. But beyond the surface, there's a spiritual struggle happening. Your presence in their life wasn't an accident. God placed you there to bring light into their darkness. And light always attracts resistance when it tries to break through the shadows. That's why you feel so tired. You're not just dealing with their mood swings or their harsh words. You're fighting for their soul. Every time you speak truth, set boundaries, or refuse to accept their toxic behavior, you're engaging in spiritual warfare. You're standing as a mirror, reflecting the truth they refuse to see. And that reflection agitates the darkness they've become comfortable in. This exhaustion isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of the battle you're fighting. The enemy uses their pride, fear, and brokenness to resist the healing God is trying to offer through you. And because you carry light, that resistance targets you. You feel the weight of their anger, the burden of their denial, and the heaviness of their unhealed wounds. But here's the truth. You were never meant to carry this battle alone. That spiritual drain is a signal that it's time to step back and let God take over. You can pray for them, love them from a distance, and hope for their healing, but you cannot fix them. Only God can do that. And sometimes your absence becomes the wake-up call they need. So when you feel that deep exhaustion, don't ignore it. It's a sign that your spirit is fighting battles your body can't see. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and trust that the seeds you planted will grow in God's time. Sometimes the hardest thing God asks you to do is walk away. When you love someone, even a narcissist, you want to help them, guide them, and show them a better way. You believe in their potential and hold on to hope that they'll change. But there comes a point when God makes it clear it's time to step back. And when you finally cut ties, it's not just for your peace, it's so God can deal with them without your interference. Your presence in their life wasn't a coincidence. God placed you there as a source of grace, a living example of love, patience, and truth. You reflected everything they needed to grow, and deep down, they knew it. Through you, God gave them chance after chance to change. Your kindness softened their defenses, your wisdom pointed them toward healing, and your forgiveness showed them what grace looked like. But they resisted. Over and over they chose pride over humility, manipulation over honesty, and selfishness over love. Instead of embracing the light you brought, they pushed it away. And every time they hurt you, lied to you, or took you for granted, they mistook God's patience for permission. They believed they could treat you however they wanted without consequence, because your love kept showing up. What they didn't realize was that your presence was their grace period. As long as you were there, they had time to change. You were the warning before the storm, the calm before the consequences. But when they crossed the line too many times, when they made it clear they wouldn't listen, God stepped in. And the first thing he did was remove you from the situation. It wasn't easy to walk away. You wrestled with guilt, wondering if you'd done enough. You questioned if leaving was the right decision, knowing how broken they were, but that's exactly why you had to go. You were never meant to save them. That's God's job. And by staying, you were standing in the way of the lessons they needed to learn. Once you're gone, the grace period ends, and the judgment begins. It's not always immediate, but the shift is undeniable. Without you there to absorb their chaos, they're left alone with their own reflection. The consequences of their actions catch up with them. Relationships fall apart, opportunities slip away, and the peace they once found in your presence turns into emptiness. This isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. God is just, and he won't allow their mistreatment to go unchecked forever. Your absence forces them to face the reality they avoided for so long. Without you shielding them from the fallout, they finally experience the full weight of their choices. And while they may blame you for their downfall, deep down they know the truth. They know they had someone rare and beautiful in their life, someone who loved them despite their flaws. They know they were given chance after chance, and they squandered them. The emptiness they feel isn't just loneliness. It's the loss of God's grace through you. As painful as it is to watch from a distance, remember this: your removal was an act of obedience. By stepping back, you allowed God to step in, and whatever happens next is no longer your burden to carry. You did your part. You planted seeds of truth and love. Now it's up to them to choose growth or face the consequences of their resistance. Letting go isn't just for your healing, it's for theirs too. And sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away and let God do what only He can. When you love a narcissist, you give them more than just your time and energy. You give them your heart, your wisdom, and your patience. You show them a love they may have never known before, a love rooted in grace and truth. And even if they didn't appreciate it while you were there, trust me, they will never forget you. Long after you're gone, your voice will still echo in their mind. The things you said, the way you loved them, the boundaries you set, it will all come back to them, again and again. In the quiet moments when their distractions fade, they'll remember the way you tried to help them. They'll remember the times you forgave them when they didn't deserve it. They'll remember the patience you showed when anyone else would have walked away. And most of all, they'll remember the warnings you gave, the truth you spoke, even when it hurt. At first, they might try to block it out. Narcissists hate facing their own reflection, and you were a mirror they couldn't escape. You showed them their flaws, not by criticizing them, but by being everything they pretended to be. Your kindness highlighted their cruelty. Your honesty exposed their lies. Your strength revealed their insecurity. And even though they tried to break you, you stood firm, a living reminder that their manipulation had no power over someone protected by God. But here's the thing. By the time they finally understand what they had in you, it may be too late. The door you kept open for them, the one filled with love, grace, and the opportunity to grow, won't stay open forever. God's patience has limits, and so does yours. Some of them will finally get it. They'll realize you weren't just another person passing through their life. You were a divine assignment, sent to help them see the truth and change. And maybe, just maybe, that realization will lead them to their knees. Maybe it will push them to seek healing, to become better, to finally face the pain they've been running from. But for others, that realization will only bring regret. They'll remember you not as the one they cherished, but as the one they lost. They'll see your glow from a distance, the peace, success, and joy that followed you after you walked away. And it will burn them. Not because they want you back, but because they'll know they never deserved you in the first place. And that's when it will hit them. You were God's final warning. You were the last person who truly cared enough to tell them the truth, to set boundaries, and to love them without conditions. And once you were gone, that grace left with you. So if you ever wonder whether they miss you, whether they think about you, know this. They do. They always will. But by the time they finally understand the gift they had, it may be too late to get it back. And that's not your burden to carry, that's theirs. When you walked away, you didn't just leave their life, you left an empty space no one else can fill. You see, you weren't just another person passing through. You were a gift, a divine assignment, a reflection of love, patience, and truth they may never experience again. And long after you're gone, they will remember you. But by the time they realize what they lost, it may be far too late. Narcissists thrive on control. They want power over people's emotions, and they crave validation. But when you entered their life, you weren't like the others. You didn't just feed their ego, you challenged them. Your love wasn't based on fear or manipulation. It was pure, honest, and selfless. And deep down, they knew it. That's why they tried so hard to break you, because your strength exposed their weakness. Even when they mistreated you, you stood firm. You offered grace, but you set boundaries. You forgave, but you didn't tolerate disrespect. You spoke the truth, even when they refused to hear it. And this made you different from everyone else they've ever known. You weren't someone they could easily replace. And trust me, they'll realize that too late. As their life starts to unravel, as relationships fall apart and the consequences of their behavior catch up to them, your absence will become louder than your presence ever was. The peace and love you offered will stand in stark contrast to the chaos they're left with. And in those quiet, lonely moments, they will remember you. They'll remember your voice, the wisdom in your words, and the patience in your tone. They'll replay the times you tried to help them, the times you warned them, the times you offered a way out of their toxic patterns. And they'll know deep down that you were the only person who truly cared enough to tell them the truth. But by then, it will likely be too late. The door you kept open for them, the one filled with love, healing, and grace, will have closed. Not out of bitterness, but because God's grace has a limit. You were their grace period, their last chance to change. And once you walked away, that season ended. Some might take your absence as a wake-up call and finally begin the hard work of healing and growth. But many won't. Their pride will keep them stuck in denial, and instead of changing, they'll be left with nothing but regret and memories. They'll watch you thrive from a distance, your peace, joy, and success shining brighter than ever. And it will be a painful reminder of what they could have had. So when you wonder if they miss you, if they think about you, know this: they do, and they always will. But the sad truth is, by the time they realize your worth, it will likely be far too late to make things right. And that's not your burden to carry. It's theirs. So, keep shining. Keep being the light in a world that needs it. Your strength, love, and faith are powerful beyond measure. And even if some people don't recognize it, God does. The right people will see your worth.